Hello YouTube family, thanks for being with us today. Today we're going to talk about how we trellis our tomatoes in our raised beds. Now, before we get started, let me just take a moment to talk about what didn't work for us. And I know you probably want me just to get to the point and tell you how we trellis these tomatoes. But in case you're tempted to do something different, or at least do what we did last year, I want to stop you from doing it. So very quickly, let me show you kind of what we did last year and why and how it did not work. Last year, we simply took a vertical board that came off of the back or the end of our box right about here and went straight up and made a T. And it extended about 3 feet off the tomatoes. We thought that that in and of itself would do a good enough job to sustain our tomatoes, and then we ran polypropylene line from one end to the other. What we did not know and what we were not expecting is that the weight of the plants and the weight of the tomatoes caused everything to bend in, and we weren't able to actually trellis up the tomatoes whatsoever. And so here is what we've done instead. So what we've done to prevent that problem is to completely re-engineer, in a sense, what we've done this year. I'm 6'1", and you can tell that the verticals that we have on our the end of our raised beds are about 6'1" in their height. I've taken it all the way down, and then I've put in about 6 to 10 or 6 to 8 screws, fixing this into the part of the box that is the strongest, where the two boards meet. I've done that on all 4 corners. I have then put horizontals across the back side of the verticals, and we're going to talk about these in just a moment, to provide some of the strength to pull against the weight of the plants themselves. As a matter of fact, you can probably see that some of our plants, even though they're not like a tomato that vines and runs up a pole per se, they're pretty tall. I know that we've got about a foot, maybe a foot and a half off the ground, but still the tomato plants are pretty tall this year, and we've got to do some pruning through here. Anyway, I digress. So we basically have suspended or helped our tomatoes by running 2 levels of line, at one about halfway up our verticals. So as the plants are growing in their early stages, we're not having to tie all the way off from the top. So I've done again one halfway up and one all the way up, and I've put about 2 to 3 screws running all the way through. Now, to prevent the support system from leaning in, I've taken just basically, and all of this is scrap lumber, by the way, just a board, and I set the end of it here on the side, and I just drew a line on the top of the box, set it at an angle, drew another line, and then took it over to my workbench and cut the appropriate angles and lines. You don't have to do a lot of fancy math. I basically just took some clamps, put it up against my board, put it up against there, marked some lines, and cut. This keeps the tomato plants now from pushing and folding my support system in. So I've done that on both ends to give me 2 levels of support, support to keep the vertical board from moving forward, and I've basically just taken screws, lag screws, and put them into here, and lag screws and put them into the top of the box on the bottom. Now, let me come in close and show you what system I've used to support this line. I drilled the pilot hole and then took a hook and ran it into our horizontal board. I then bought a turnbuckle. These are important because as you affix your line to them, you want to extend these eyes or hooks, depending on which ones you get, or an eye and a hook. This is an eye, and that obviously is the hook. These turnbuckles can come with 2 eyes, 2 hooks, or an eye and a hook. I've done kind of both on some of them. I used what I had and then went out and bought new ones. Anyway, you're going to want to put your turnbuckle on your hook, and you'll want to extend these bolts as far out almost as you can, because as you tighten them and bring them in, if you start with them all the way in, you're not going to have any room to tighten them down. I simply got a polypropylene covered line. What we've done is instead of having a metal line that can end up rusting, you can get a polypropylene, a vinyl, a PVC coated clothesline, and then tie it onto the eye. And I think I prefer almost eyes. When I have a hook here and a hook here, it tends to, when you put tension on it, want to crawl up and slip off depending on the angle. I've actually pinched this down so it prevents that from happening. And so again, what you do is you just take your polypropylene line, pull it as tight as you can, wrap it around here. I've just went ahead and wrapped the excess around here. And I've got a more robust turnbuckle here, and I could probably squeeze that down. But if you see, we already have our line sagging a bit on us. And so what I can do is go back and tighten these turnbuckles, and it'll pull this line up without pulling my support system in towards itself. Hopefully I'm not throwing off the focus on the camera too much. But even now, we're finding this to work very, very well and keeping all of our tomato plants where they should be. Now, as you see, I've got a row, just simply a row running here about midway up the plants. We used that when the plants were first growing. And we also use a tomato clip to help clip the tomato onto the line or clip the tomato onto the string and then run the string up to the clothesline. Let me maybe go and pull some of those out of our garden mailbox, and I'll show you what those look like. Actually, I was able to just locate one here in the on the tomato plant that Lynn has put in there already. You simply clip this around one of the branches that you want to suspend. You can wrap or run your string through it. It provides you a place to put that, and then you just run your string all the way up to your line, and it helps suspend everything in the garden. Again, we have had just wonderful success on this entire system for our tomato beds this year. Lynn is probably going to come out and get a little aggressive in trimming these tomato plants out, but with the ground cover that we've had to keep down and help prevent a leaf blight, and then with this new support system, we've had just a wonderful level of success for our raised bed tomatoes. Again, not overly complicated. We try to keep it as simple as possible. Sometimes we don't succeed at that, other times that we do. Hopefully this is an encouragement to you, gives you some ideas for your own raised bed. Well, again, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not yet a subscriber, hit the subscribe button down below. And as always, you have a blessed day.